Our world is home to many different kinds of religions. From Islam to Christianity to Buddhism, and to lesser-known avenues of worship, religion is present and living. Today, we're taking a dive into the historical temples of Greece, and we're going to learn about how the Greek gods and their followers persisted throughout history, taking a look at why and how they were worshipped. To start, let's go over some important terms.
Hellenistic Polytheism, commonly known as Hellenism or Hellenismos.
A term used for the religious beliefs and worship of the Greek pantheon. There is a greater discussion about the inaccuracy of referring to the pagan worship of Greek gods using the term Hellenism. For the purpose of our presentation, we will be using the term Hellenistic Polytheism as a way of distinguishing the modern religions from the Greek culture.
Hellenismos, or Hellenism,
refers to Greek culture, thought, and practices across time. Hellenes are synonymous with Greek people, and Hellenic is synonymous with the word Greek.
Paganism,
the practice of any other religion apart from the main recognized religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Taoism, etc. It may also refer to religions from pre-Christianity periods. Hellenistic polytheism is often referred to as a pagan religion.
Pantheon,
a collective of gods within a religion. Here's a rough timeline of Hellenistic polytheism. According to Britannica, worship of Zeus, the main god of the pantheon, was present in as early as 2nd millennium BC. Historians estimate that ancient Greek religion had originated from the circulation of culture between the Greek-speaking people moving from the north and the indigenous people living in Greece at the time, whom the former called the Pelasgi. The Greek newcomers believed in a pantheon, managed by the sky god, now known as Zeus.
750 BC. Greek religion is established, although certain localities would venerate specific gods.
447 to 432 BC. The construction of the Parthenon in Athens. In 438 BC, the now famous statue of Athena was built inside the temple.
323 BC. Alexander the Great, the Greco-Macedonian king, for the past 13 years, has just died. He was known for his campaign to conquer land stretching from Greece to India. His death marks the start of what is known as the Hellenistic period, derived from the word Hellesian. It means to speak Greek or to relate to the Greeks. Every part of the kingdom is impacted by Greek ideals and thought.
31 BC. The Romans had been gradually taking over the Mediterranean. The first Roman emperor, Octavio, takes the name Augustus.
The Edict of Thessalonica is announced by Emperor Theodosius I and co-emperors Gratian and Valentinian II, dictating all Romans must convert to Trinitarian Christianity.
393 CE. Theodosius I orders the cessation of Greek pagan sport games.
426 CE. The sanctuary site, known as Olympia, was condemned for destruction by Theodosius II.
9th century CE. Most scholars and historians agree that the pagan religions of Greece faded by this time.
Hellenistic polytheists mainly worship the 12 main gods of ancient Greece, also known as the Olympians: Zeus, Poseidon, Hera, Demeter, Hermes, Aphrodite, Dionysus, Athena, Ares, Apollo, Artemis, and Hephaestus. They are called Olympians due to where they are believed to reside, the mountain of Olympus. Hades is among the venerated, and is considered a major god, although he does not live on the surface.
Each god within the pantheon has multiple domains, or earthly phenomena / things that they represent. Depictions of the gods famously included statues, poems, and the Homeric epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Zeus, the sky god and the head of the pantheon, rules Mount Olympus with his jealous wife and sister, Hera. Poseidon is Zeus's brother and the god of the sea, earthquakes, and horses. Hades, Zeus and Poseidon's brother, lives in the underworld as the caretaker of the afterlife among the chthonic gods. Demeter is their sister and the goddess of the harvest. Hermes overlooks travelers and trade, Aphrodite's domain is love and beauty, and Dionysus is the god of wine and revelry.
Athena is among the most famous, being the patron goddess of the city-state of Athens and the wise goddess of tactical warfare. Ares, another god of war, is more closely associated with the violence and conquest that stems from the act. Apollo and Artemis are the twin archer gods of Olympus, often thought to be later conflated with Helios and Selene, siblings representing the sun and moon respectively. Apollo is also the god of medicine, music, and light, and Artemis is the goddess of the hunt, maidenhood, and wild animals. Lastly, Hephaestus is the shunned god of the forge, metallurgy, craftsmanship, and volcanoes.
Worshippers recognize that the gods are present in everyday corporal life. They are not infallible or omniscient as their Abrahamic interpretations of God, but they are nonetheless incredibly powerful. Hellenistic polytheists understand that the gods are a part of the same universal society, and that their offerings are a way of showing reciprocity. Among that godly society are minor gods, nymphs representing land formations and bodies of water, and mythological creatures.
While Hellenistic pagans believe in all or most of the gods in the Greek pantheon, they may just as easily choose to lean towards a specific one's favor. For example, one may prefer the god of the vine, Dionysus, in their day-to-day lives.
When one dies, they are taken by Thanatos, the god of death. In terms of the afterlife, Hellenistic polytheists believe that the buried dead pass over the river of Styx in the underworld, where they go on as shades, souls of the newly deceased. They traverse through the meadows of Asphodel, where memories of their past life dissipate. If one was good, they would ascend to Elysium, a beautiful place. Or, if they needed to be punished, they would be sent to Tartarus. If the shade cannot be properly judged, they stay in Asphodel.
Now, how does one go about worshipping the gods? Offerings are a large part of Hellenistic polytheist practice. Contemporary practice may utilize representative foods instead of live animal sacrifice. It is important to note that there is contention among Hellenistic polytheists about the use of animal sacrifices, especially between Reconstructionists and non-Greek pagans, and whether Hellenistic pagans can identify as such without practicing it. British classicist Mary Beard has critiqued Reconstructionist movements, stating that until these eager neo-pagans get real and slaughter a bull or two in central Athens, I shan't worry that they have much to do with ancient religion at all.
Other than sacrifices, Hellenistic polytheists may partake in festivities including, but not limited to, the Titan Hecate's Diepnon, celebrated by ancient Athenians to appease the dead on the last day of the lunar calendar. Then Numinia, or the new moon, giving offerings to Hellenic gods of the household like Hestia and Apollo, followed by the second day of the Greek lunar calendar, or Agathos Daemon, meaning good spirits.
In ancient Greece, festivals were often a way of paying homage to a certain god or goddess. Greeks would travel from all over the world to partake or watch sports competitions, and the experience was often compared to that of a pilgrimage. The Olympics are a long-lasting example of these festivities. In ancient Greece, men participated in sports varying from discus throwing, full-contact martial arts, jumping, races, and javelin throwing in the Panhellenic Games, hosted every 4 years in Olympia.
Musical competitions, often played in the lyre or kithara, and theatrical tragedies and comedies were performed during celebrations. Songs were important parts of ancient Greek life. Aside from the religious associations, music was present in gatherings, marriages, and funeral processions. They transmitted stories, accolades, and praise for the gods. Hymnoi, or hymns, were songs that gave such acknowledgments.
One such performance is a Homeric hymn, named after the epics as they shared the same dialect hexameter. Dedicated to Hermes' invention of the first lyre from a tortoise shell, the lyre, kithara, and ulos are among the most popular instruments in ancient Greece. In fact, you may have noticed that you're hearing these very instruments playing throughout this presentation.
Although Greek mythology is different from the worship of Greek gods, they are still intertwined. Stories shaped how gods were seen and what values one might come to hold. Although, since stories of the Greek pantheon were told and interpreted, and after thousands of years, change is bound to happen.
With that being said, I'd like to tell an iconic Greek story that has been widely misinterpreted. The story of Heracles. Zeus was known for sneaking off from Olympus to seduce mortal women despite his wife Hera's efforts to stop him. Zeus disguises himself as the husband to a mortal woman named Alchemy, so that she may welcome him into bed with her to make a child. She later gave birth to the demigod child, which she and her husband named Heracles, meaning glorious gift of Hera. Hera was furious when she discovered about the birth of Zeus's bastard. So, she sends 2 snakes to strangle the baby Heracles. Due to being a child of Zeus, the baby Heracles fearlessly strangles the 2 snakes before they can do any harm. Defeated, Hera does not interfere with Heracles while he grows into an extremely powerful warrior. Heracles marries the daughter of Sciron, king of Thebes, Megara, and has 3 sons with her. Turns out, Hera doesn't let go of grudges and possesses Heracles' mind, sending him into chaos. During this, Hera brought him to kill his wife and children. Heracles, unknowing that it was Hera's doing, seeks Apollo to figure out how to atone for his sins. Despite knowing that Heracles' crimes were Hera's doing, Apollo sends Heracles to serve a cruel king named Eurystheus, with the promise that once he's done serving him, he will be cleansed and will join the gods on Mount Olympus. This king tasks Heracles with 12 nearly impossible tasks, known now as the 12 labors. These 12 labors include killing a fearsome lion, killing the Hydra, capturing Artemis's sacred deer with golden antlers, capturing a man-eating boar, cleaning very large amounts of feces from a king's enormous stables, driving away a huge flock of also man-eating birds, capturing a rampaging bull that was the cause for the Minotaur, capture 4 horses that were man-eating horses. The king made him steal the Amazon queen Hippolyte's armored belt, the cattle of the monster Geryon, and Hera's wedding gift to Zeus, a set of golden apples. Heracles' final task from King Eurystheus was to descend into Hades and kidnap the guardian of the underworld gates, the 3-headed dog Cerberus. Completing all of these tasks caused Heracles to nearly die many, many times, but he persisted in order to fulfill Apollo's prophecy. Heracles spent many more years completing more incredible tasks until he met and married Deianira, whose name means destroyer of her husband. Can you guess what she does? Deianira presents Heracles with a cloak that she mistakenly coated with poison, rather than a magic coating to ensure he loves her for eternity. After accepting the cloak and burning from the poison, Heracles is laid down for a funeral, where Hera finally believes that Heracles has suffered enough and brings him up to Mount Olympus. The end.
Modern Hellenistic polytheism does not have a central religious authority or sacred text, as most ancient Greeks relied on oral communication. Since the religion has no main religious leader, i.e. Catholicism's pope, many aspects are still under discussion. With that in mind, we would like to cover 7 pillars of Hellenistic polytheism, as outlined by Timothy J. Alexander, an author of multiple books about Hellenism. The first pillar is ethik arete, which focuses on ethics and the practice of knowing how everything you do and all the effort you put forward is bringing you to your goals.
The second pillar is eubesia, which teaches respect and loyalty to the gods of Greece, and fulfilling your duties as a follower.
The third pillar is hagneia, that tells people to maintain ritual purity through obeying these teachings and avoiding criminal activity.
Nomos archaios is the fourth pillar. It is about following ancient tradition and the custom, rules, and teachings of religious law.
The fifth pillar is Sophia. This pillar is about the pursuit of wisdom and finding truth and understanding.
Sophrosun is the sixth pillar. Focuses on teaching self-control and reflecting on yourself.
The seventh and final pillar is Xenia, which tells you to adhere to any hospitality and gifts given to you.
Fortunately, we were able to contact a follower of Hellenistic Polytheism from an online forum, and they were kind enough to lend us their help in answering a few questions. They provided an in-depth response, and we are incredibly grateful for their cooperation. We will refer to them anonymously, and for the sake of brevity, we will summarize a few of their points.
What led you to following this faith?
Looking at history helped me navigate things and figure out that worshipping other gods isn't contradictory. It was normal practice in the past. Also, gating off gods into hard pantheons is an artifact of later mythography and folklorists. The ancient Greeks were happy to venerate the gods of other cultures, even if they tended to use their own names for them, such as Hermes for Thoth and Anubis, Apollo for Horus, or Artemis for Bastet.
What are some religious rituals you partake in? What is their significance?
I pray in front of my altar most nights, thanking the gods for watching over me and for their patience, and I sometimes make an offering to mark a special day. But for the most part, it's not easy to celebrate festivals without a larger community, and there aren't many specific elaborate rituals I'm required to perform at home. The Abrahamic faiths tend to make a few assumptions that underlie their worship, such as that God is already aware of us, or that God already wants to act on our behalf, and that if he doesn't, it is either because he has a greater plan or because we did something wrong. Hellenism doesn't assume any of those. Instead, worship is about showing our goodwill to the gods, hoping that goodwill is returned by the gods, creating a reciprocal relationship. It doesn't necessarily assume the gods are apathetic, but it does not assume the gods are omniscient or omnipresent.
Are there any local groups in your community that share your faith?
Not as far as I know. There are a few generally pagan groups in New Zealand, but nothing close by and nothing specifically Hellenistic to my knowledge.
How often do you meet someone who follows Hellenistic polytheism?
To my knowledge, it hasn't happened yet.
Are there any religious rules that you follow in your daily life?
Other than the format of prayers and veneration, there are no religious rules like the Ten Commandments or prescriptions in Deuteronomy or Leviticus. There are some things like the 147 Delphic maxims, and philosophers debated what good was and why we should be, but those are a separate matter. While I think the gods want us to be good, and for what is good for us, they leave us to determine what that means. I've always thought that someone being good only because it was written in a book or out of fear for eternal damnation is not actually a moral act but a compelled obedience.
What is it like following Hellenistic polytheism in a community that is mostly made up of other religions?
New Zealand differs from somewhere like the US in that around 48% of people don't follow a religion. Until I consider myself Hellenist, I was one of them. 37% follow some denomination of Christianity, 2.7% are Hindu, 1.3% are Muslim, and 1.1% are Buddhist. So, statistically speaking, you are more slightly likely to encounter someone who isn't a monotheist than someone who is. The prevalence of a secular attitude has created a mostly live and let live attitude that may not exist to the same extent in the US, where the balance of probability isn't whether most people you encounter are Christians, but which denomination of Christian they will be. New Zealanders tend to be more skeptical of people who loudly and visibly believe in causes, but if you're just getting by, you fit right in. For this segment, we'll dive back into the stories of old, another popular Greek myth, the story of Theseus.
Every 7 to 9 years, the King Minos sends 14 young people, 7 men and 7 women, as sacrifices into a labyrinth containing a flesh-eating minotaur. Determined to slay this half-bull, half-man, Theseus volunteers to enter this labyrinth as a sacrifice. Now, before entering, Theseus seduces the king's daughter, Ariadne, into letting him bring a ball of string into this labyrinth in exchange for his hand in marriage. By unrolling the ball as he walks, Theseus is able to create a path back to where he started and lead the other sacrifices out of the labyrinth. Theseus then slays the Minotaur and follows the string to lead him out of the maze, thus ending the tradition of sacrifice. Theseus, unwilling to actually go through with the marriage, sneakily leaves Ariadne on an island shore. Afterwards, his ship sets sail to bring Theseus back to his father. His crew's instructions were to fly a white sail if he had slain the great beast, or a black sail if he had failed. Ariadne, heartbroken about Theseus' betrayal, is heard by Dionysus, god of wine, and he punishes him on her behalf. Theseus and his crew, under Dionysus' influence, forget the special instructions during their return and set a black sail. Theseus' father sees this message and, overcome with grief, jumps off a cliff.
Greek mythology recognizes the pomegranate as the fruit of death and fertility. The pomegranate is also a very important part of the story of Persephone and Hades, which, in summary, is as follows. Due to Hades' loneliness in the underworld, he appears above the ground and takes Persephone, a wood nymph and daughter of Demeter, down with him as his wife. If Persephone ate or drank anything in the underworld, she would have to stay with him forever. Persephone came to love Hades, and once he agreed to bring her back to the surface, she accepted his offer of a bright red pomegranate and ate 6 seeds, now bounding her to stay in the underworld for 6 months of the year.
The ancient Greeks believed that dining is the principal expression of social harmony. It was customary to set a spot at the dining table for the gods to dine. Sacrifices include
animal sacrifices, fish, birds, oxen, sheep, and goats,
and whole foods like grasses, roots, cereal grains, fruits, cheese, oil, honey, and milk, and incense. Lastly, let's talk about how Hellenistic polytheism has impacted our everyday lives. Philosophy and religion had a very close relationship during the times of the ancient Greeks. Prominent philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates had a huge impact on the views of religion, among other things. This relationship is studied by those following more formally reconstructed religions and those studying Antiquity. Even now, there are avenues of study dedicated to ancient Greek culture in universities and post-secondary courses.
Here's a little known fact. The sportswear company Nike was named after the Greek goddess of victory. Its logo mimics Nike's wings and represents athletic prowess. As mentioned, the Olympic Games are an example of how ancient Greek practice persists in modern-day life, albeit in an evolved form. Beginning thousands of years ago in Athens, they were attended every 4 years in honor of Zeus and his pantheon. The games were so culturally important that warring factions would uphold a truce as they partook in the Olympics. The first modern version of the Olympics was held in Athens in 1896, continuing until it reached global status. Still held in 4-year intervals, as the years went on, organizers added a wider range of events, like swimming, figure skating, lacrosse, and basketball. They introduced the Winter Games in 1994, alternating between the two every 2 years.
That's all today, folks. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.